So they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. I know everyone on the right's afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandate. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. If they've already been exposed, that won't work. There's going to be no. What are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia. Is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway.
Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, where we bring you the gospel of Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of a modern world. And today's topic, Gog or Agag, Part 2. Numbers chapter 24, verse 7. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. God brought him forth out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall break their bones, and pierce them through with his arrows. He couched, he lay down as a young lion, and as a great lion. Who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesses thee, and cursed is he that curses thee. Welcome back, family. This is part 2 of my little series on Gog of Magog and Agag. And so there's some discrepancy here that we need to clear up. So in part 1, I kind of focused on Gog of Magog, and that he was not a man, he's an entity. He is a principality given rule over essentially a region or even governments. And so you have to go back and look at what Paul was talking about when he said, we fight not against flesh and blood. But I'm trying to dispel the myth that, people are saying Gog is the Antichrist. Well, sort of, but not really, because Gog is actually an entity. Now, it could be, and we talked about it a little bit before, the difference between demons and angels. A demon is basically a disembodied Nephilim, and demons can possess human beings. They have no bodies. They weren't created by Yah, and so there's no place for them. And so whenever they can, they want to get out of the water and get in a boat. And you, my friend, are the boat. So that's where demon possession comes in. They want to be back in a body. Angels, on the other hand, they don't need a body. They can manifest the body if they want, which is how they were able to originally impregnate human women. They took on the form of men. They can do that. Demons can't do that. So this is not the video to go all into that, but there are other videos I have that kind of go into that, and maybe I'll do some more on that. But this particular video is focused on this terminology here. Now, this is in Numbers, where Balaam the man whose eyes are open, he's essentially a prophet. And here's a crazy part. What and I want everybody to understand, every prophet in the Bible is a Hebrew. I know people don't like to think that Esau is a Hebrew. And I've seen people say, oh, these people are not Hebrews, those people are not Hebrews. But the term Hebrew is derived from the word Eber. And Eber is the progenitor of the Hebrews. Eberus, right? And it means to cross over, essentially. Now, Esau, along with Ishmael, they are also Hebrews, descended from Eber. But the promise is placed on Israel, the descendants of Jacob, who's Esau's brother. So right now, most people think of Hebrews as being Israelites, or the Israelites are the only Hebrews. That is not true. And people need to stop saying it. The promise is on the descendants of Jacob. But Ishmael and Esau, they are also Hebrews. If you can find some place where they, quote unquote, stop being Hebrews, let me know. But from what I'm seeing, they are also Hebrews. And every prophet in the Bible is a Hebrew. I mean, whether they come from the line of Israel or not. But Balaam, he's the son of Beor, who is a Hebrew. And so Yah talks to them. And I find it interesting is when they excavate the areas of Edom, there's really it's hard to determine if they were actually worshiping Yahweh or not. It's weird. It's more like when you excavate the lands where the Israelites were, you can detect a very simple, these people were very religious and they worshiped this God called Yahweh, right? But when you excavate down in the lands of Edom, it's very nebulous as to what they worshiped, if they worshiped. And that would make sense because if you understand who and what Esau represents, who and what Esau is today, he's very secular. He's about now. He's about right here and right now, just like his progenitor or their progenitor. The Edomites' progenitor is Esau, who sold his birthright for the here and now. He said, I'm hungry right now, and what good is his birthright going to do me? So that kind of goes along with the story. Esau is not a look down the road kind of guy. He's not thinking about eternal life. He's thinking about ruling here and now. Very secular. But anyway, I digress. So what I want to get into here is this term Agag, the fourth line down here. And it says that the king, meaning the king of Israel, or in this case, Hamashiach, Messiah, will be higher than Agag. Well, when you look at it, it sounds like, hey, this guy Agag must have been pretty great. Now, he was the king of the Amalekites, as we'll get into in a minute. But there are other places, older manuscripts that don't say Agag. And that would make sense. Why would you compare Messiah, Lord of Lords and King of Kings, to this man who only ruled over a specific tribe of the earth? And that's all Agag was. So why would you compare Messiah to this guy? Or is he talking about a guy? Well, older translations, and you have to understand this term, King James, comes out of King James, and these things were translated from the Septuagint. And there's a lot of politics that went into it. And Agag being an historical character, in that particular translation, they took that word and tried to tie it more to something historical. But in the older manuscripts, it doesn't say Agag, it says Gog. Now, when you know Hebrew, you know it's a kind of a vowel-less language. So you might have, let's say you have GG. Well, the people at the time would know, hey, that you pronounce that Gog, right? Or you could have the A in front of it and it could be Agag, Agag, right? So in other words, people looking at it can go two ways with it, except that if you go with the Agag translation, it kind of doesn't fit. You're comparing the great king, the son of Yah, the son of God, right? You're comparing him to a king of a tribe. No, it makes more sense to translate it like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They translated Gog. Now that makes more sense because Gog is a very powerful demonic or even possibly angelic spirit that rules apparently a good portion of the earth. In fact, when they talk about the Prince of Persia and the Prince of Grecia, these were ruling spirits that ruled over these nation states and gave them great power to, conduct war and to defeat their enemies and to gain great power on the earth. And it was bestowed upon them from the Prince of Persia. And we'll get into that because I'm going to kind of rehash part one, so this might get a little long. I'll try to speed through it a little bit, but not too fast. I want you to actually grasp it. So the older manuscripts translate this word Agag as Gog. And like I say, that makes more sense to compare Messiah to a powerful spiritual entity that controls large swaths of land on the earth and nations and governments. And I find it interesting, and we'll get into that some more, is that after the millennial reign of Christ, it is Gog of Magog that comes back. They say the devil is let loose. Well, wait a minute. The devil is let loose, but at the same time, Gog of Magog sways the nations to attack the Kodashim, the saints. So it seems like Gog is tied to the devil, or is Gog actually the devil? I try to tell everybody that Satan just means adversaries, and it's a kingdom of adversaries. It's not just one guy. Yeah, they may have their leader, but it's not just one guy. So it could be that the main guy is unleashed after the 1,000 years, but his cohorts also. And it appears that if Gog is not the devil, then he's his lieutenant. He's his number one, because he's the one that goes out and deceives the nations. So anyway, we're still here on this first page, and I want to move on. But understand, Agag is probably better translated as Gog. And we talked about Gog in that last video. And we'll rehash it real quick in case you forgot or don't remember. So I'm going to just jump back. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. The apostle says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." He's not talking about human beings. He's telling you what you're up against. Pay attention. Daniel chapter 10, verse 12. "Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy works were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia," that's the prince of Persia, "withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael," which means like God, "one of the chief princes came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia." So let's see, Michael, the prince, archangel, had to fight it out with the prince of Persia for 21 days. Does that sound like a man? The prince of Persia is obviously not a man. I mean, no man could withstand the archangel Michael for 21 days, not even for a second, right? So you're dealing with another principality, spiritual entity, a very powerful one. and they call him the Prince of Persia, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not Gog. It could be Gog, but here they're calling him the Prince of Persia. I'm not saying he is, but understand Michael was going up against another chief prince, but on the dark side of things, right? And so now we're going to go back a little bit and discuss who Gog might be. I know they like to say, "Hey, Gog, he comes from this spot on the map," and that's those people are we call them the Turks, and that is the Turks who are going to go against Israel and da da da. Well, and we talked about this in part one. If you actually think that the same people that lived 4,000 years ago in that spot are still the same people today in that spot, you've drank the Kool-Aid. Nobody's where they were 4,000 years ago. That's the crazy part. Yeah, I'm not saying absolutely nobody, but you understand, everybody's spread across the globe everywhere. Yeah, there might be remnants of the people of Magog still there, but there's been wars, the Caliphate, the Khazars, the Romans, the Persians, the Greeks. Everybody's been moved around. You follow? So you can't just look at a landmass and say, "See, that's Magog." Well, what's more important here is a spiritual entity that has not necessarily moved around. I'm not saying he hasn't expanded his territory. His home base is Magog, which means, I believe it means Gog, and then there's Magog, so it's like the parent of Gog, if you will. Some people say the mother of Gog, but he's from the land of Magog, right? So he's an entity that had his origins there. And that's why people think he was really a fallen Nephilim that lived there. And now he's a demonic spirit that kind of operates from there. But let's not close our minds to the idea that this entity has spread around the globe. And he's actually empowered divisions in the human condition, meaning you just look at things like NATO versus Russia versus China versus, Islam versus Christianity versus, you get the picture. These entities have been around for thousands and thousands of years. Human beings have come and gone, but these same entities have the same playbook, and they keep rehashing the things that worked in the past. They just keep reusing it because it keeps working, and we're the ones silly enough to keep following the pattern to our detriment, because nation states rise, become empires, and then they fall. It's just this constant flow of rising and falling and carnage, and that's what they want. They want you killing each other. They don't like you, but they do like you worshiping them as gods. So that's their thing. They want to be like the Most High, right? So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 10 just to understand more about Magog and the people who were of the land of Magog. So chapter 10, verse 1, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Unto them were born sons after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog. There you go, Magog. And Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshach and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. And Rephath and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families in their nations. Now the term Gentiles was originally applied to the children of Japheth. And somehow it's morphed into more than that. Like Now the Hamites weren't originally included in the Gentiles. The Shemites weren't included in the Gentiles. So maybe that was more prophetic. Yah just knew what the children of Japheth would do, and it essentially means they went away from Yah. Apparently Ham didn't, and we know Shem didn't. But later on, as you go through scriptures, later it becomes, even the Hamites are considered Gentiles. And here's the part people, they don't get. The Israelites, once they were taken captive by the Assyrians and forgot about circumcision and the law and kind of got absorbed into these cultures, even forgetting who they were, they became Gentiles. And there are several Bible dictionaries that point this out, and several commentaries that point out that the children of Israel, once they lost their heritage, became Gentiles. So when the scriptures talk about the Gentiles, when you really put two and two together, Paul kept seeking out. He said, I turn to the Gentiles. Now, I'm not saying that excludes everybody, but his focus was on the Israelites. Like he knew where they were. And I can prove that one. I mean, you can prove it just out the Bible. He was looking for Israel. And because he went to the synagogues on the Sabbath, and there were Gentiles in there. Question is, who were these Gentiles? Were they Greeks, Romans, or were they actually Israelites who are now considered Gentiles? That's not a thing I'm making up. The Israelites who lost their heritage were then called Gentiles. So that term is an interesting term. It almost means turned away from Yah, basically. Turned away from the Elohim or God, if we want to call him that. But that's another thing we can get into one day. But that term Gentiles, you got to be careful with it, because Paul was seeking out Israel. So we know that Magog was one of the children or grandchildren of Japheth. And he did migrate to certain areas up north, in Turkey and Russia, and up into the Caucasus Mountains. And the children of Japheth was essentially given Europe and the Northlands, right? So let's read more about Gog, Ezekiel chapter 38. Chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog. Again, Gog is not a man. The land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. A lot of people think Meshech and Tubal today are called Moscow and Tobolsk. So in other words, it's guiding you towards Russia. And prophesy against him and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Now, remember, originally in that landmass was the people of Magog. And so you might think that when they refer to Magog, they're talking about Turkey, but they migrated out and expanded. And like I say, Russia is a good landing spot for these people. And so a lot of people think of Russia as Magog now. And I'm not going to argue that, because I tend to think that way too, except that Gog has expanded. I think that Gog now is an entity that's over more than just Russia. In fact, he's chosen because of his power. If you notice, they talk about the Prince of Persia. They talk about the Prince of Grecia. But they never talk about the Prince of Rome. I mean, Rome is actually more powerful than the Prince of Grecia, the Prince of Persia. What entity ruled over Rome? That's where it gets funny, because they don't mention a Prince of Rome. So who might the Prince of Rome be? Who gave power to the Roman Empire? A very powerful spirit gave power to the Roman Empire, because that empire broke in pieces all previous empires and would be so powerful that no human force could overcome them. In fact, their destruction is awaiting the return of the Messiah. The Messiah himself will destroy the Roman beast. So I would guess that this Gog is the actual principality over the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire is not just Western Europe anymore. It's expanded into the Americas. And how do I know that? Because the nations, remember the 10 horns are the 10 tribal nations that came out of the Roman Empire. You know, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Veruli, the Burgundians, you know, like the French, the Lombards, da 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 da. So anyway, and the Vandals, of course, I didn't mention them, but these were all part of the Roman Empire. But now they've expanded across into the Americas. So the Visigoths, the Spanish, the Saxons, right? They're the English, and they spread into the Americas. And also I think the Veruli were the Portuguese. They went down into South America, into Brazil. And they founded the nation states and powers in the Isles. And you got to look at that term. That term just messes people up. The Isles are the extreme portions and actual islands, coastlands. So that told you what the Europeans would do. They would expand to the far portions of the earth, the Americas, and the Isles, the Greek Isles, the British Isles, and they would expand forth. And these are the same people groups that established these powerful nations in the West. It's still part of the Roman Empire. I mean, it's not just a locality now. That's why I say Gog is not just a local god over the people of Magog in Turkey or something like that. No, Gog is the principality that governs the Roman Empire, just like the Prince of Persia gave power to the Persian Empire, just like the Prince of Grecia gave power to Alexander the Greek. God gives power to the Roman beast. Okay? So it's not just a Russia thing. It's not just a Turkey thing. It's something else. And that shows how powerful this entity is. That Messiah himself. And if we go back, remember it says the King of Israel, the Messiah, will be higher than Gog. That's a hint that it is the Messiah who overthrows Gog. And just look at your prophecy. It is Messiah at his second coming that overthrows the beast system. You know, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. We know that to be Rome. So can't you see that Gog is the principality over the Roman Empire? And the Roman Empire has spread worldwide now. I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but this Gog sits in the seat of the Roman. He sits over Rome and the Roman power. Okay, so let's continue. O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. Now, where have we seen that before? We saw that in the book of Job. Leviathan, it says he will put a hook in the jaws of Leviathan and draw him out and play with him like a plaything. Yeah, I mean, this is all prophecy being tied together. And I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Of course, Libya being Put, the son of Ham. Ethiopia was actually Cush, the son of Ham. So are they saying that these nations are aligned with Gog? Or are they just combatants meeting in that place of what we call Israel for war? I doubt if they're all aligned together. I think they're the protagonists and antagonists of this of the story. But as you saw in the Roman Empire, let's talk about the king of the north. Generally speaking, the king of the north and the king of the south were two separate powers. But by the time the Roman Empire comes about, the Roman Empire is both the king of the north and the king of the south. That's when I think Gog sat over them. Gog is now ruler of that whole region. Okay. So anyway, they all meet. And it says Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north. See, that's why I think of the king of the north. And all his bands and many people with thee. So this starts sounding like, the old Armageddon story a little bit. And so a lot of people think, yeah, Gog is the Antichrist. But like I said, he's an entity. He is not a man. Now, I can't say he won't possess a man. What we call the Antichrist, but I can't say that. But let's just, you can kind of put the whole thing together. The problem with all of this is when people say Gog is the Antichrist, it clearly says that Gog is the one that stirs up the nations after the 1,000-year period. That's why I say, be careful, because he's 1,000 years after the second coming, right? But remember, he's an entity that he was there before, the second coming. And I think he's the principality over the Roman Empire. And so from that sense, you can kind of glean that, yeah, he probably has a lot to do with the Antichrist. But in these passages, I think he's more talking about after the 1,000-year reign. So Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 14, therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, thus saith the Lord God, in that day when my people Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, the north, king of the north thing, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army, and thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days. That's why in Revelation, we're going to get to that, it says after the 1,000 years. And I will bring thee against my land that the heathen may know, just like Pharaoh had to find out, just like the Egyptians had to find out, that the heathen may know, the Gentiles, the descendants of Japheth, primarily, when I shall be sanctified in thee. Sounds like, for this reason, Pharaoh, have I raised thee up, so that I could show my power in thee, right? Same thing here. I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes, just like he was sanctified in Pharaoh before the eyes of all Egypt and all the other nations. So that's pretty much a rehash of what we talked about in part one. But now let's talk about this guy, Agag. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think, Agag, the word Agag and the word Gog, there is a similarity there. And so I wonder, remember I said that it could be that Gog is a demonic spirit, which means he can possess a human being? Or if he's an angelic force, he can procreate with a human being. And if you think that's far-fetched, when you really understand what Paul was talking about women should have, in the Kodashim women, the saints, the women in the quote-unquote church, should have their heads covered, he said it's because of the angels. What does that mean? Women should have their heads covered because of the angels? Sounds to me like in the last days, one of these angelic beings may get it into their heads that, hey, let's do what the Watchers did. Let's impregnate human women again. And so human women, their hair is considered as part of their, in a sense, their genitalia. So long, luxurious hair, and I'm not talking about straight hair or curly hair, What I'm talking about is healthy hair. Long, healthy hair is, to them back then, and still even today, is a sign of fertility. And the reason they would tell the women to cover their heads is because the angels think human women are beautiful. And when they see your hair uncovered and they see it as luxurious, they sense that it is, you are fertile. I know you haven't heard this before. Maybe you have. But there's a reason Paul says women should cover their heads. He said because of the angels. He don't want the angels to get. It's just like dressing modestly around men. Same thing. Cover your head. Or if you're married, your husband is your covering, meaning the one that will protect you from this attack. It might be some rules involved there, but understand that Paul's telling women with luxurious hair, which denotes their fertility, cover your head because of the angels. So anyway, don't be too shocked if this angelic being doesn't do what his forebears did, the Watchers, and impregnate a human woman. I know that sounds wild, but hey, the Nephilim, the reason we have demons today is because that happened. Okay, so now let's jump to Agag, and we're going to see if we possibly can tie Agag to Gog. This ought to be interesting. Exodus chapter 17 and verse 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Yahusha. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it, well, they say Jehovah Nisi, or Yahweh Nisi. For he said, because the Lord has sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 19 to 21. And ye have this day rejected your God. So this is when Israel had asked for a king, and I'm leading up to something here. They end up with Saul. So he's saying, Samuel's saying, you've rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversities and tribulations. And ye have said unto him, nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. And when he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken. And Saul, the son of Kish, was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. That's kind of symbolic of the reign of Saul. He's going to disappear when they need him most, sort of. He stops following the Lord. He stops following Yahweh, I should say. 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid in wait for him in the way when he came up out of Egypt, which he did. He attacked the rear quarters of the troops, which were mainly old people and kids. And that pissed Moses off to no end. He said, they got to pay for that. That was just dirty, which it was. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman and infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And then in verse 7, and Saul went out and did that, right? And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah unto thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them, But everything that was vile and refuse, that they destroyed. He kind of half-assed it. So anyway, so that we get a mention of Agag there. And remember, Agag is king of the Amalekites, but the Amalekites are Edomites. They're the children of Edom, Esau. And you have to start connecting the dots, because in the book of Jasher, Esau's fate is actually spelled out. Esau gets essentially pulled up into Europe. He's defeated by the Kittimites. They didn't take everybody, so I'm going to guess, about 80% of the Edomites were dragged up into Europe, and they kind of probably went somewhat willingly. It wasn't like the Kittimites didn't like the Edomites. In fact, I think there was a certain amount of admiration there, and I say that for a reason. And it said they became one people. So the children of Japheth, Kittim, became one people with the children of Esau, the Edomites. And the Edomites moved into Europe. And you might say, well, that was the book of Jasher. That's not in the Bible. Well, I don't know. Let's take a look. So if you get to the book of Esther, oh, by the way, not all the Edomites. There was a good portion of them that remained in the land. Usually the poorer types get to stay, while the wealthier types, the educated and kings, are taken into Europe. And then so Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. And I want you to think about this. There's a reason Yah said, just besides the fact that the Amalekites did them dirty, they were very warlike people, very selfish, just nasty people. You know what I'm saying? And they did not like the Israelites, and I think they might have had a hint of the history. Maybe there was some jealousy there, but it says that Esau would have a perpetual hatred towards Israel, meaning they won't even know why they hate Israel. It's a spiritual thing. They just do. So after these things, the king Ahasuerus promote Haman, or Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. What does that mean? Well, what does Israelite mean? It means the children of Israel. What does Agagite mean? It means the children of Agag. And advanced him. So Haman was an Agagite, descendant of the Amalekites, the royal line at that, and advanced him and sent his seat above all princes that were with him. Okay, so Haman is descended from the kings of the Amalekites, descended from Esau, Edom, right? In Esther chapter 3, verse 10. So let's see how Haman ends up in the Persian. He's second in command. He becomes second in command in the Persian Empire. But where does he come from? Okay, he's an Edomite of the line of Amalek, of the line of the kings of the Amalekites, the Agagites. So let's look more into where he comes from. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Yeah, this is an old thing. This is an old feud. This guy is not forgotten. He hates the Jews. It's not like just some guy out of the blue taking a disliking. You know, this is an old. They did not bury this hatchet. He's going to want to try to bury the hatchet in the forehead of Mordecai. But anyway, and the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Now, Ahasuerus doesn't realize the old blood feud. He's just, this is my second in command, and it's something Haman wants to accomplish. So he says, yeah, sure, whatever. Not realizing, of course, that Esther is of these people, right? Of the people Haman wants to kill. She's a Jewess, right? Particularly of the tribe of Benjamin. Anyway, from the apocryphal part, now this is parts that of the book of Esther that somehow have been cut out of the book of Esther in the 66 books of the Bible. But let's look and see what it says. For Haman, a Macedonian. I wonder why they would cut that part out. Haman, the Agagite, the king of the Amalekites, descended from Esau, Edom, the brother of Jacob, comes from Macedonia. But remember, I said that the book of Jasher said they were taken into, who are the Kittimites? Alexander the Great was called a Kittimite. You get it? From Macedonia. So the Macedonians came down, defeated, this is way back, defeated the Edomites, took most of them up into Europe, into Macedonia, Greece, and became one people with them. That's what the book of Jasher says. And here's confirmation of that. For Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Hammedatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood. He was not Persian. And think about it. Who overthrew the Persian Empire? The Greco-Macedonian people. So in a sense, he's worked his way. He's slithered his way up the ranks of the Persian Empire. Right? Can we say spy? You know what I'm saying? So the Persians were fairly good to the Yahudim while they were in the Persian Empire. In fact, they allowed them to go back and rebuild a temple, right? But here comes the Macedonian, who is now second in command in the Persian Empire. And remember, it was the Macedonians and the Greeks who overthrew the Persian Empire. So this is kind of a prelude. He's kind of a, he's a double agent. So we start to see that, Agag, if you understand, Agag is descendant of Esau, Edom. But also Esau, Edom, they called Rome the kingdom of the Edomites. So what they're saying is that the Roman Empire is controlled by Esau, Esau's descendants. And as you can see in that past example, that, they had embedded themselves in very high places, even in the Persian Empire, then the Greco-Macedonian, and then the Roman. And they sat atop the Roman Empire. I don't know, are you picking all that up? I don't know if I've lost you on that, but just go back over the video and see if you can follow it. There's some good stuff in there. So if you look at it that way, that Agag, the king of the Amalekites, the descendant of Esau, is now at the helm of the Roman Empire. Okay? Let that sink in. That's got to sink in. But yet Gog is the principality that gives power to the Roman Empire. It's like saying that Gog gives power to the descendants of Agag to control the Roman Empire and to take control of his networks, his kingdom, right? Because Gog is the principality that empowers Rome, the Roman Empire. The empire that gets so powerful it breaks in pieces all other empires. And when you look at the fate of Esau, Edom, it parallels the fate of the Roman beast system. I mean, that everything, because bad things are going to happen to Esau. But it also said that Esau would live in the fat of the land. He'd be rich and powerful, and he would gain all his might and power by the edge of the sword. He's a warrior. And basically, he gets all his wealth through the edge of the sword, killing and maiming and stealing and robbing and taking what is not his. He takes it for his own, and he becomes wealthy. In fact, he becomes so powerful that the only one that can stop him is Hamashiach, the Messiah. The Roman beast has teeth of iron. You get it? There's no, according to the ancients at that time, iron was seen as the strongest metal. Nothing could break iron. Telling you that there's no other empire on earth that's going to be able to overthrow this Roman beast. The Esau beast. Esau controls the Roman Empire. Specifically, the Amalekites, the Agagites. Okay, so the fate of Esau's descendants parallels is the same as the fate of the Roman beast. If just read what Esau is accursed. He's hated by the Most High. It says, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. That's no joke for you guys who think that the Most High does not hate. Yeah, he does, and he hates unrighteousness. He can't coexist with it, so he has to do away with it. So, anyway, when you look at the way the world is set up right now, it's primed for the return of Messiah. And I can't say, I'm not one of those guys who are going to say he's coming tomorrow at 3:00, something like that. But you can kind of see. He says when you see the trees in bloom, the spring is near, kind of thing. You can kind of see it. You can see how it could go, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so Ezekiel chapter 39, therefore thou son of man prophesy against Gog and say, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and leave but 1/6 part of thee. Oh, man, that's ugly. And will cause thee to come up from the north parts, the king of the north, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. And verse 6, and I will send a fire on Magog. I want y'all to think about that. I will send a fire on Magog. And don't think that Magog is just some little territory. It's more than that. Now it's more than that. Just like Israel is spread all over the globe, pretty much everybody's spread all over the globe at this point, It's just a question of what position in the hierarchy, It's like a case system all over the world. Esau sits at the top of the system. Israel sits at the bottom of the system and has been persecuted. But remember, he said he won't flood the earth. That's why he put the rainbow in the sky. How is he going to do his damage in the last days? Through fire. So it's a different kind of flood. And I will send a fire on Magog and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles, coastlands, right? And they shall know that I am the Lord, Yahweh. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. So, and let me finish that. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. So what he's saying is, apparently his people Israel had forgotten his name. But in the last days, so I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. The name is making a comeback. People have been calling him all sorts of stuff. He has a name. He told you what his name was. 7,000 times he told you what his name was, and nobody's saying it. But he said, my people shall know my name. That's a test. I'm telling you. You should start gravitating to the name. This video is not, I'm not going to get on that in this video. I got other videos that talk about that. But know this for a certainty. The eternal, the creator of heaven and earth has a name. And he said, my people will know my name. Verse 26. After that, they have borne their shame. After the children of Israel have borne their shame. Because apparently they had to go through some very severe punishments. After they have borne their shame and all their trespasses whereby they have trespassed against me, when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid, when I have brought them again from the people, Yahweh does this. He's going to bring them from the people and gather them out of their enemies' lands, and am sanctified in them in the sight of many nations, just like he did in Egypt. Then shall they know that I am the Lord. I am Yahweh, their Elohim, which caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen or Gentiles. But I have gathered them unto their own land, and have left none of them any more there. He's saying every last Israelite anywhere in the world is going to be, I don't care where you are. You could be in Alaska right now. I'm going to somehow get you to what we call Palestine today, to Israel, right? I mean, think that through for a second. There's a lot of stuff going on in Israel right now. Let's see how that pans out. And Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan, the adversary, shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle. There's a symbiont relationship there. The number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Yahweh out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Well, some of that translation is not so much forever and ever, but it says to the aeons of the aeons, the ages of the ages. So what does that mean? I don't know. Smarter people than me will figure that one out. Well, family, that's all I have today. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you can follow it, because there was a lot going on there. I thank you so much for continually supporting my content. And if you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they'd find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention, and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. Thank you so much for your patronage. And may everybody have a blessed and beautiful day who's in the body of Messiah, Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ of Nazareth. And I'll see you all on the next video. Shalom.